like your, like, okay. Okay, let's see. So the first one, the Adora Bubble Soda Company's sales. And they're showing you the percent of sales for each flavor. So the table above shows the Adora Bubble Soda Company sales for 1980 and 2000. The company sold 200 trillion cans of soda in 1980. If the company sold 40 trillion more cans of soda in 2000 than it did in 1980, then for which flavor did the number of cans of soda sold increase by 20% from 1980 to 2000? Okay. So, right away we can eliminate Raspberry Rush because, well, I guess we can't really, because 25% of 200 trillion is going to be different from 5% of 240 trillion. All right, we'll just look. All right, so 50% of the sales in 1980 were Snappy Apple. And if they had 200 trillion, that means 100 trillion were Snappy Apple. And then in 2000, they sold 240 trillion. So in 1980, the total was 200. In 2000, it was 240. So this would be 120. So the percent increase here, the difference is 20 over the original is 100. That's 20%. So that's the right answer. Okay, but let's look at the other ones. 25% of 200 is 50. 5% of 240. Remember, to do percents, you do 5% of 240 is 12. So that's actually a decrease. So it's not Raspberry Rush. Fresh Fizz, this is 20, and 12% of 240 is 28.8. The difference over the original times 100 is 44%. So it's not Fresh Fizz. Cranberry Crackle, 12% of 200 is 24 trillion. And 10% of 240 trillion is 24 trillion. So this was no percent increase. It increased 0%. So it's not Cranberry Crackle. And then Purple Pop, 3% of 200 is 6, and 3% of 240 is 7.2. Difference over original times 100. Oh wait, that's also 20%. There, mistake. I've never noticed that before. All right, 3% of 200 is 6, and 3% of 240 is 7.2. 1.2 over 6 times 100. 20%. I think this has a mistake. I think these are both right. Snappy Apple and Purple Pop. This one would need to be something else. I think the problem is that because this amount right here increased by 20%, if the percent stays the same, then it means that the number of cans also increases by 20%. So, yeah, this one, these are both right. Annie. I've taught this class several times and I've never noticed that before. I think always just stopped after Snappy Apple because it was right. So, goes to show you should try them all.
Yeah.
That one's right. I mean, that one has 2 right answers. Okay. The last 2, because of calculators, these should be pretty easy to do. With a graph that has shading, remember that if you have the or equal to sign, the little bar underneath, then your graph should be a solid line. If it doesn't, it should be a dotted line. And if it's less than or equal to, it should be shaded below the graph, and greater than or equal to, it should be shaded above. So this is what the line should look like. This is what the shading should look like. So right away I can tell that I need one that has a solid line and greater than, right? This one should have greater than or equal to, because it's a solid line shaded above. So I can already eliminate A and B. And then if you just type the other ones into your calculator, you can see which one makes that shape of a graph. So let's see. Y equals 1 over x. That's not it. It makes this kind of funky little, it's not that one. 1/2 to the x. That looks pretty close. We'll check the next one just to be sure. X to the negative 1/2. That one doesn't cross the y-axis, so it would have to be this one here. And then the last one, even though it says hard, it's really not, because you have a calculator. I mean, you are allowed to use a calculator. You just have to know where to find absolute value. So on the Inspires, you press the control times. It brings up all those templates. But on these calculators, you have to go to the math menu and over to number, and it's the very first one. Absolute value of x. Close the parentheses when you want to close the absolute value bars, over 3. So that's not it. I actually think that it is C, so I'm going to graph C just to be sure. Absolute value of x plus 3. Yep. So C. All right. So that is it for Geometry Day 2. Thank goodness.